There's an ever-changing wealth gap happening out there. We hear about it all the time. And the only question is, what side of the divide are you on? And how do you close the wealth gap? Welcome to the one show that gives you some real tangible tips and ideas for people like you and me to protect your family, your friends, and yourself from that ever-growing chasm that seems to keep us from where we are to where we want to be. With the man who's helped millions, Tyrone French. Hey, Tyrone.
Paul, I tell you what, man, I've been waiting for this segment, for this episode for days.
For days.
And let me tell you why.
Okay.
We're here in California.
Yes.
Beautiful weather.
Yes.
Even if it rains, we need the rain. But it only lasts for a little while, and then all of a sudden the wind comes in and blows off all the smog, and we can
relax,
skies.
And we think that all is good again here. It will never be a drought. Nothing bad will ever happen again. Thank you. I got through the 20 minutes of pain.
But my point is, we live in this beautiful sunshine, and my friends are pulling their hair out over the news that a recession is coming, and I'm like, calm down, take a deep breath, just, enjoy the atmosphere, turn on some music. Yes, a recession is coming.
Oh, Tyrone, don't tell me this. I thought you were I'm already covering my ears. No, I'm not listening.
It's that boom bust. It's almost like saying winter is not coming.
Yeah.
Or it's like saying fall is not coming.
Or in California, that there's no more earthquakes ever again.
There's no more earthquakes coming. Or there's no tornadoes in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. No. People know that these seasons, they're seasonal. They're going to come. The issue is, have you prepared for it?
No.
And the more prepared you are, the less worried or frightened you're going to be.
So let me ask you a hard question. I'm going to cut you off right there. All right. So we live in Southern California. All I ever hear about is the big one's coming. The big one's coming. So far, it hasn't come. Little ones have come, and they come so infrequently, and there's such a long period that I suddenly think, I know it's coming, but not in my lifetime. Do you have water at home? Do you have earthquake blanket? Do you have the whole thing set up like we're all supposed to do?
Well, Paul, I'm prior military. So for me, that's just that's instinctual.
Good.
I'm always going to protect my family.
So you're walking the walk. I'm happy to hear that. I'd be disappointed if you said, no, I'm like everybody. I don't have all that. I have some water. I keep saying I'm going to get the kit together. Occasionally I buy some things and I stick them somewhere and then I forget where they are because it's nice.
Well, here's the thing. I plan for about 72 hours. I plan for 72 hours
Really?
just to because we live in I don't foresee things being so catastrophic that we're just going to lose everything. So
but the power will be off. Maybe your gas will be disrupted. All that stuff. Yeah.
Right. So I prepare for 72 hours and a little bit more than that. But the issue is I've taken that same mindset and put it into closing the wealth gap, meaning that I've just taken the worry out of what I do on a daily basis, meaning that the more prepared I am, the better I feel about situations. And here's the thing. I know that I can't control everything.
Right.
Some things are just out of my control.
Right.
But it goes back to when I first joined the military and joined the Navy back in 1981.
Okay.
And they just didn't put a uniform on me and put me in the fleet.
They didn't, huh?
We went through basic training.
Yeah.
And what they were doing is that they were instilling in me mechanisms and principles to whereas when I found myself in a situation, I didn't have to think about it. All I had to do was react.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things, it became habitual.
Right.
So the same way that we get into this habitual worrying or habitual nightmare scenarios that something's going to happen, flip the switch. You flip that switch, and all of a sudden now you're anticipating things happening, and it's almost like, wow, that didn't happen. Great day. Now, because of the compound effect, you're building now. So when it does come, it's not as catastrophic. Let me give you an example.
All right.
Let's say you're driving down the street, and all of a sudden the car just dies on you.
Yep.
But you've been anticipating that, hey, one of these days my car could break down. So I want to be in the position to make sure that when that happens, I'm covered.
And you know how I do that? It's funny you bring that up. I've been a member of AAA, to give a little shout out for AAA here, ever since I came to California in the 1980s. And I often ask myself, why am I paying that, whatever it is, $50, $100 a year to be a member of AAA? Until I get a flat tire, until the battery doesn't start, until I'm stuck somewhere and I need them. And then I say, thank God. So my daughter, who's 27, Dad, I don't need that stuff. I said, you got a grandchild now. You got my only grandchild. I'm going to pay for I just renewed it last week for her. I gave her the card and she rolled her eyes. Dad, I don't need AAA. I said, maybe not today, but if you do, someday, I want to know you're covered. I don't want to be worrying about you trying to fix a tire out on the freeway with my grandson.
Wow. Perfect example. I mean, I have AAA, same thing. But the words that you were using is that I don't want to be worried.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you're taken care of.
Right.
And plus, we're going to spend the money anyway. So why not just take that small amount just to have the peace of mind of knowing that when it does come, that situation, it's there.
Right. Exactly. So it's the same reason we have insurance, the same reason we do other things. We just want to know that in those moments we're taken care of. And particularly, not just so me, I can live without it. I say to myself, okay, so I can fix a tire. But I'm not so sure. I don't want to be worried about those I love.
Exactly.
That's the dad in me.
And so you mentioned about having the earthquake kit and the whole 9 yards. I don't want to be worried about my loved ones.
Yeah.
I want to go about the day doing what I need to focus on and give it 100%. Be there in the present 100% and not worrying about what's going to happen in the future. Am I prepared for that? Or in the past, what did I do that was deficient that's holding me back right now? Right. I want to live my life in the present, be fully present to make sure that, again, when a situation arises, I'm fully prepared for it. I've already thought it out. I already have a plan.
You're making me sigh here, and I'm thinking to myself, well, why don't I do this in my financial life here? I do this with my daughter in AAA. Yes, I have done it somewhat with earthquake preparedness. When my daughter reached a certain age, I went out and bought a ladder, one of those roll-out ladders, because I thought, what if there's a fire? I never worried about how I'm going to get out of the fire in the second story, but I suddenly was worried about her getting out because I'm a dad now. And the same thing holds true in my life, financial life. So if I know that there's a chance, a good chance, a probable chance that a downturn will occur at some point in my life, why am I Chicken Little and sticking my head into the sand?
Reason being, Paul, is because it's not a priority.
Yeah.
It's not a priority.
I'm putting it off.
Here's the thing. We're all in that it's the same soup. And I'm talking about as far as the economy in our communities. We're in the same soup. We're so busy, or people are so busy trying to make a living that they're really not focused on the thing that they really need to be focused on. Because everything compounds. It's either going to compound in a positive direction, or it's going to compound in a negative direction.
Boy, that's the truth.
But rest assured, it is going to compound. And the results that we're getting, we may see a result in real time, meaning that we're conscious of something in real time. But the event took place days, months, years ago before we even got to the end result. And so we're constantly trying to deal with the end result or the effect without focusing on the cause.
I'll give you a perfect example. She wouldn't like it probably, but hopefully she's not listening. My wife, for years, I said, we should have a retirement plan. We should start thinking about tomorrow. We're young. We're the baby boomers. We're always young. We're the Peter Pan generation. We're never going to get old. It was always tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. Now, she's in her late 60s, and she got laid off after multiple years, and suddenly she's looking at me saying, what's the plan? I'm like, the plan? I guess today is that day we've been putting off for. And I saw this with my aunt. My aunt passed away. I'm going to get choked up, but my aunt passed away last year, 93. Took care of her for the last 10 years of her life. No kids, but I'm her only relative. And she used to look at me. And she had no money, no savings, no nothing, and she had to go into a home. And we had to liquidate whatever she had, and I had to come up with some, and it wasn't a very nice home. And she looked at me like, well, come on, come up with a better answer. I said, the better answer was 20 years ago. You should have saved. I should have saved. We should have bought a long-term health care plan. We should have done something. But we didn't ever think, you never thought, I never thought this day would happen. And if we did think about it, we didn't want to think about it.
Our company, I shouldn't say company, but our country is in a position where, our country it's based on individual families that create communities,
right?
Which creates neighborhoods and cities,
right?
Which creates states, which creates the United States,
a federation of united.
A federation, yeah.
Right.
So the issue is, it starts at a micro. It starts at a micro level and ends up at a macro level.
Right. And yet too often, not to get too political here, I can be either left or right in these conversations, but one of the things is, and it's true, Jerry Brown used to say it, it's certainly a left-wing politician here in California, we don't take enough personal responsibility for that plan. We either do one of two things. We either do what my wife and I did, not going to talk about it, no, later, never, not going to happen, can't face it, can't deal with it, don't want to talk about it, like little children, or we look to our parents or our big brother and Uncle Sam to take care of it for us.
Well, I tell you, I had a conversation with my daughter yesterday, and my daughter, she's graduating from high school this year.
Okay,
and she's already been accepted into Cal State Long Beach.
Congratulations!
And we're excited about that. And she was saying, well, Dad, she drives a car. She, went through the whole AAA driving training, the whole 9 yards. She has a car. She, and she drives back and forth to school. And she loves her independence. She loves her freedom.
Right.
But she's getting older now. She's recognizing certain things. And she said, Dad, she's dropping a hint. Dad, some of my friends are driving Teslas to school. Some of my friends drive Jeeps to school.
Yeah.
Brand new Jeeps. She got my wife's older car, and my wife got a new car.
Sure.
So again, she's hint. We should be. You should. And yet let's kind of keep up with the Joneses.
And yet, my dad's hint would have been, "You can do that too. Go out and earn the money."
My point was, what I had to tell her. I said, her name is Jasmine. I said, Jasmine. I said, we are first generational wealth. We're first generational wealth. You're second generational wealth, and your kids will be third generational wealth. My parents did the best they could with what they had, the information that they had,
right? But
they weren't financially savvy or financially astute. And so my dad recently just passed away.
Yeah, I know.
And
Sorry to hear that.
His plan was to make sure that my mother was taken care of, which he did. He was very effective in doing that. But he left her enough to get by. Now, my mother has 7 kids.
Wow.
So, she's fine. And we're all adult kids. We're all doing fine. So she doesn't have a thing to worry about.
Right.
But my dad took care of the basics because that's all he could afford. He did the best he could with what he could afford.
Right.
So what I was having to explain to my daughter is that when you look at other people in their scenarios and you see wealth, it's because a lot of that wealth has been passed down from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
But the majority of the population is not thinking that way.
No.
Because the majority of the population, they have to get up, they have to work for a living, they have to work for money.
Right.
And then when the money is not there, it causes a catastrophic rift to whereas sometimes people, just like we look at our homeless situation today, it's not the fact that people are not working. It's the fact that they cannot keep up with the cost of living.
Yeah, isn't that the
truth? They're not
truth?
making enough money.
That's one of the big drivers of driving homelessness up, the rising cost of housing, the rising cost of living, the inability to make enough, even with 2 jobs, to afford an apartment, a house, a car, and everything else you need here in Southern California. The cost of living is so high here, starting with housing. So let's go back to those. We seem to have 2 different choices here. You're saying, you're giving me door number 3, but the 2 choices I hear is, 1, ignore it, pretend it'll never hope it never happens, or 2, rely on somebody else to bail you out when it does?
Well, again,
I'll give you a perfect example. I'm sorry.
Well, here's the thing, though, Paul. We started out talking about the recession,
yes,
and how my friends they're pulling their hair out. They're pulling their hair out. They're trying to figure out
worried.
Where are they going to? What's going to happen? What are they going to do? They don't want to be homeless. They don't want to lose all of their stuff.
Right.
So, what do they need to do to prepare? And so I went back and had a very nice conversation with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about money. We were talking about the boom bust cycle.
Right.
And when you're talking about the boom bust cycle, you got to talk about the Fed and how they regulate currencies. And people get.
You mean you want to give us some insight as to where these boom and busts come from here? Because I always wonder, where the heck did these things come from? Why is it a certainty that things go up, they go down? What goes up comes down, must come down.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's the price of things. It's the money that is not worth. I hate to use the term worth less, but money today, $1 today, is worth less than it was yesterday. So it's not that things are too expensive or out of people's reach. It's just the money is so diluted that you need more dollars just to maintain the standard of living that you had 3-4 years ago.
And why is that? Just inflation? They try and tame inflation. Inflation means that there's too much out there, and so it's driving up demand, and demand drives up prices, and all this stuff.
Well, see, they call it inflation. It's like calling somebody. It's like using the term illiterate. You can say financially illiterate, and people can absorb that. But if you call somebody a financial idiot, then that's defensive. So it's not that the money, as far as the inflation rate or money is being inflated, the money is being devalued. It has less value. So because it has less value, you need more of it just to maintain a standard of living. So what's been going, if you look at the stock market is record territory.
Yes.
But if you look at wages have been stagnant.
Yeah.
So people are not making enough money because, again, the money that they have is being devalued. So when they say, okay, well, I'm going to store my money away for a rainy day, just in case I need it. Well, the minute you put that money into that account, checking, savings, or whatever, is being confiscated through inflation, meaning that the money is being devalued. So the reason that the Fed would like to pump all this money into the economy is because every dollar that's in circulation there's interest on that dollar. So the banks are earning interest off of every dollar that's being circulated. So
I hate this. You mean the harder I work, the less I make?
The harder you work, the less you make.
Wow. So how do I get out of this?
Go ahead.
How do I get out of this cycle? Because I know we started with the premise. Let's just back up a second. We started with the premise that people either are too scared to think about it and run away, or they assume somebody else will take care of it. Your daughter, you'll take care of your daughter. I'd take care of my aunt. The government will take care of me. We have we have a giant earthquake. Most people don't have earthquake insurance here in California, even though we know it's coming, because we somehow assume if it's really bad, there'll be federal relief or state relief that'll help us out. We count on somebody else rescuing us. So I think the first thing is you got to take responsibility for these things yourself and take them off your plate so you're not worried about it. Now, if you take that step, what steps do you do next?
Okay. But Paul, everything that we talked about, there's a thread that runs right through everything.
Okay.
And it's prioritizing.
Wow,
the first thing you have to do is it has to become a priority, just like with your daughter and the AAA card. If that was not a priority, meaning that a concern of yours, out of love for your daughter, you would never do it.
No. And fear, I picture this little movie playing in my head. She's out on the freeway trying to change a tire, and her 5-year-old's in the back seat.
Fear is a great motivator, but what trumps that fear was love.
Yeah,
because you care about them and you don't want them to be in that scenario.
No.
So it's the same thing financially. When people get their head out of the sand and start looking forward and start looking at the horizon. In investment terms, they call it a time horizon.
Yeah.
Meaning that you need to figure out where you are and where you want to go. What most people do is they're living day by day, and they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And so their time horizon is a week. It's not 10 years. It's not 15 years. It's not 20 years. Because here's the thing. Most people will put their money in a 401k, which is a savings plan.
Right.
If people really understood what they were doing based on their time horizon, they wouldn't do it. Because not only is the money tax deferred, but you're paying fees on that money, which is another tax.
Right.
So that money really isn't your money, because by the time you get ready to use it, you've lost maybe a quarter of it in fees. Then you're going to lose maybe another 2 quarters in taxes. And then don't let the market, based on the boom bust cycle, don't be in a bust cycle when you're trying to take money out of it.
That's the real fear we have these days. We went through it recently. The most, my wife's employer included, do not give you retirement plans anymore. Instead, they match you. You put some money and we'll match it somehow. And so you say, okay, that sounds good. I'll save. Forces me to save, and you'll put some money in yourself. But they gave her so few options of how to invest that money, and she never cared to look at any of them. She just relied on whatever they told her to do, that when the Great Recession came along, she lost half of it.
Exactly. And again, it's by design. Because think about this. Recession comes, and based on this word that everybody is programmed to use, which is inflation, which is, again, we understand now, is devaluing. The money is being devalued. So that money has been devalued. So let's say you got this great plan and you saved all this money. Well, guess what? You have to pull more money out of your plan just to live. Because of inflation, things cost more. And if you're taking more out of that plan, by default, guess what you're paying more on the back end? Taxes. And
the third part of it, the third leg of the stool is, I'm taking it out when it's worth even less because of market conditions. I'm being forced to take it out. Too many of us, if I could just let it sit there and ride back up, like people tell me, I'll wait another 10 years, it'll come back. But all of a sudden I'm 65, she's 65. We can't wait. We need the money now.
Paul, people are so programmed to find work or to find a job. Even politicians, they run on, the economy.
How many jobs? The jobs report, right?
But the issue is what we need to get into the habit of, or the mindset of, having a job. A job is a great place to start, but it's a lousy place to finish. We need to get to the point back to being an entrepreneurial mindset, to whereas you start a job, but you start a business on the side as well. And today we live in a cycle to whereas you can start a business for $500, less than $1,000.
Yeah.
To start a business that's generating income that you're not working for. So it's residual income that's coming in that you offset with legitimate business expenses, even though you have a job. You can save more money with your own business and your own retirement plan versus trying to save money on the job with a 401k.
Well, because you get to take more of it home. You get to write off various expenses. So you don't get taxed the same on those independent entrepreneurial dollars as you do on your job dollar.
So now
that'd be a whole nother show, but
right. You're not keeping pace with inflation. What you're doing is that you're exceeding the inflation rate, or you're exceeding the devaluation rate of your money. You have more of it, and it's not being taxed. And you're not losing as much in fees.
Well, let's see if we can wrap this up, because we threw a lot at everybody here today. I just want to recap. I think the first insight that you gave me is we got to get out of this childish mentality that either it's never going to happen and I don't want to think about it because it's too horrendous, or someone else is going to take care of it for me. There's nobody but you that's going to take care of this thing. And
take responsibility.
Take responsibility. Then the second thing is, if you're going to do that, make it a priority. Don't put it off till tomorrow. Do it today. And you do it today will actually take less stress. It doesn't eat away at you all the time, worrying, wondering what's going to happen and how am I going to handle that if it happens. So it makes sense to do it now, and it'll actually bring you more peace of mind if you start to prioritize this. And then
because it compounds. But go ahead.
And then the last thing is, all right, so then what do I do? Well, start listening to this show, start doing research, other sorts of things that are going to show you ways to make more money with what you have at hand, which you have a limited amount of: time.
Time is a variable. Time is a variable that a lot of people just kind of overlook. But when you're talking about compounding, time is essential.
Yes.
Because the more time you have, just like my daughter already has a retirement plan. She just turned 18 years old.
Wow.
So by the time she's 26, 27 years old, she's done.
Amazing.
She's finished.
Amazing.
So it goes back, but that's a priority for us, Paul, because again, we're first generational wealth. She's second generational wealth. And then we're going to teach our family as far as keeping that process going. And we'll use what we need, my wife and I, in our lifetime, but we're going to pass that down to the next generation. And based on time and compounding, they're going to have more than we had, and then so on and so forth. So we're constantly in front of the curve.
Well, it's time to end this show, but it's not. There's still plenty of time to take action. How do they contact you if they want to learn more about how they can take responsibility and the steps they need to take with the time they have?
To me, Paul, this is the best time of the show. I want them to just go to www.closingthewealthgap.info. www.closingthewealthgap.info, and we can start a conversation. We give a lot of information on this. I don't expect for everybody to keep up and understand everything that we're talking about, but I do expect for them to maybe research and say, is this legitimate, or is this right, or this sounds too good to be. No, do your homework.
Right.
Do your research.
Put some time into it, because the time you put into it will pay off tenfold in the returns you receive.
As a financial planner, we say invest in yourself.
Yeah, right.
Take that investment, invest in yourself, put the time in, and it will pay dividends.
Well, I can't leave it on any better thought than that. One more time, how do they reach you?
www.closingthewealthgap.info.
Well, you've done it. We can too, and food for thought. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Paul.
There is a wealth gap. It's ever widening. We hear about it all the time. Bad things are ahead. And the question are you ready? How do you avoid? Do you just deny? Do you rely on others? Or can you take charge of your financial future? Tune in each and every week as we talk about these tough issues and teach you how to close the wealth gap right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.